Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming back. I am Howard Beck from Agricultural and Biological Engineering. And this group started out with a phone call. We were going to have a meeting. Then we thought, oh, well, we should have a seminar. And then, oh, we should have a workshop. So we kept going and growing. And we're totally informal with this thing. And hopefully it's really a way to bring groups of people together that are interested in the subject and go from there. Here's this rough schedule. I don't want to be a slave to the clock. I think we have plenty of time. We'll give the least of that. But I put this in the clip, the chat clipboard if you want to see the schedule. Okay, I'm just going to give kind of an overview, throw out a lot of ideas and see if any of them stick. This area is rapidly developing. It's no exaggeration to say that there's been an explosion in AI technology in the last year, last month, last few days. It's just happening so fast. We're all been overwhelmed with what we're doing and what could be done. So we're just here to look at how these technologies can benefit urban landscaping, gardening, and bring together people interested in talking about this further. I just wanted to say, I find this to be one of the most pleasant fields of study that I've ever encountered. Everybody loves plants. If nothing else, we're going to be creating beautiful gardens. But there's all this huge social aspect that this technology can really aid in restoring damaged ecosystems in the urban environments, reduce pollution, mitigate climate change, dealing with, there's obviously a lot of problems out there, and don't get depressed because these are tools that we might be able to deal with some of these problems. I'm hopeful for that. So I'm going to throw out a bunch of ideas. Design tools for creating landscapes are there, but they're going to change with new techniques, new AI functionality. We have a special interest in, I'm going to call it extended reality. We keep changing the name on this. Okay, you've probably heard of virtual reality, and we may have heard of augmented reality. And I think mixed reality is no longer in vogue. So now we're calling extended reality. So virtual reality is I'm in my living room with my headset, and I'm someplace else. I don't know how I got there, but I'm completely immersed in some other environment, and I'm always, without fail, when I take off my headset, I go, oh, I'm back in my living room. How did I get here? So you're really divorced from the space you're in, but augmented reality is I'm in my living room and I see my coffee table and couch, but now there's some digital objects that have been placed into my vision that are within that environment, and there might be a houseplant, which we'll be seeing in a minute. So that's the difference. One is completely separated from external vision, and the other one's mixed in. So that's what we mean by extended reality. We also want to talk about recommendation systems to give advice from experts on how to pick the right plants for the right spot, how to maintain them. We'll be doing a section on natural language processing. You no doubt have heard all about the big breakthrough there with chat bots, but we want to use that to extract information from publications, as well as look at, can chatbots give good advice to homeowners and city planners and such. And in other areas, urban infrastructure. You'll be hearing about stormwater mitigation. It's a huge problem in the cities, and can we build a water garden to help purify the water? And I'm sure there's more, but that's all I want to get into. Okay, to begin with, you got to look at the gamers, and I want to thank the gamers for playing video games so that I don't have to, but they've driven the technology. They made it possible. We wouldn't have GPUs, graphic processing units, without gamers, and GPUs are what is now driving AI. That's what we have, over 1,000 GPUs in the Hypergator supercomputer, and they discovered that this was a great way to train neural networks. So I thank the gamers. I don't like to play games that much myself. I prefer a more meditative environment. I'm sitting out in the woods. I don't want to deal with zombies. But you got to look at the spectacular visuals that they're creating. And if you look, I don't mean to be picky here, but if you look closely, look at those ferns. These look like 3D plants, but they're not. They're actually flat. This is a technique known as billboarding, where you have a picture of a plant with transparencies, but the billboards are arranged at various angles. It's really just two-dimensional. If you were to really look at this closely, you go, hey, we need some better plant models. But it's a prop. It's a prop in a video game. You know, when you watch a movie, these props are not real. They're not supposed to be real. They're just there to fool you into thinking that you're seeing plants. And but we want to go much further into plant models, and because it's not a movie, I want to do something for my home garden, and I need more functionality than props. But it is fun to look at. Or you can get lots of these examples are available and online. I'm going to go through some of these in more detail. This is a prototype that we built for landscaping, just to see what we could do. The plant models are of a much higher quality. But if, again, you look closely, it's some strange quirky shapes in the leaves. You may not notice them, but they're higher quality because you want to be able to walk around in this scene and look at things. I also want to say that the resolution on these things is going to become huge and highly detailed. The resolution will exceed the resolution of the screen will exceed the resolution of your retina, and that means we can model plants at enormous levels of detail. Depending on your purpose. I want to preface this by saying a lot of this depends on what you're trying to do. But we were getting some good results. These are all handmade plant models, and that's one of the #1 ways of building them. Now, this is a program called DALL-E, which you probably have heard about. I put in the prompt Miami style pink Art Deco home with landscape plants. And it came up with this beautiful drawing. And even got the pink part right. So we also have to contemplate generative AI, which is the software that you prompted and it will write a story, it'll make the pictures for you, but it already knows a great deal about landscaping. But this is merely a two-dimensional image. They're working on moving that up. Let's see. So augmented reality example. This is an app for a smartphone called Beams AR. And you're basically using the smartphone to look at your front yard, and the picture on the left is the original yard. The picture on the right, these are digital plants that have been put in. It's going to get harder and harder to tell whether you're looking at a digital plant or an actual one. And that's how AR, augmented reality, can work in this space. You can walk around on this path here, and the plants will still be there as you move around them and walk right through them. Okay, if you want to try this yourself, there are tons of plant models online that you can get for free or for a mere 30 or 40 bucks or something. I'm amazed at the artists all over the world. These are, again, they're hand built. But here's a site called Sketchfab, there's Turbo Squids, Speed Tree. Different places you can get these pictures if you want to try it yourself. The next thing you might want to try is there's many software packages. I like to use Blender that will let you take these models and work with them individually, touch them up. SketchUp, Maya, there's different ones out there. The next level up, okay, now I've got my plant models and I want to build a space. And so Unity, Unreal Engine for 3D scene composition would be the method of choice. And here I've highlighted, this is not a palm tree on fire. I've highlighted it so I can move it around and resize it and do different things. But there's one more level. Coming to a supercomputer near you in Northeast Gainesville is NVIDIA's Omniverse software. This now takes the scene that you built and, well, just a couple things, but one of them is it's NVIDIA's answer to the metaverse. Now, maybe that Zuckerberg metaverse didn't work out as it had been planned. That is more of a social media network. And Omniverse is more of an industrial tool. Companies are using, the classic one would be to build what's called the digital twin of your factory. And we're going to have this, I keep getting the promise of like in a month or two, I think some people are already working on it. The Omniverse software has been installed, the hardware is there. This is going to be an excellent facility to distribute and build and make run different extended reality packages. It uses, it boasts the universal scene description, OpenUSD. That's what makes it a metaverse. So your work would be in the Omniverse, and you can jump easily to somebody else's work. This is all going to be very interconnected. It's like the URL on a web. Before the web, everybody had their own isolated pages and they couldn't jump from page to page as we do now. But with USD, it's basically a way of linking together different things that people build, much like web pages, only they're going to be extended reality. So on the one hand, there's USD, and the other hand, there's this super fast and powerful platform for building extended reality applications. But the number one way of building these types of systems is with hand-drawn plants, and we need to move on to something, they're too inflexible. Let's talk about sources of data that could be used to build plant models. And I've listed a few of them here. One is LiDAR, which is laser beams tracing. On the left is kind of a point cloud. You get millions of points. You can point these at trees and get these huge clouds. And then you try to analyze that data to figure out what the shapes of the trees are. Another method is photogrammetry, which is a photographic technique. And there you see on the middle of the table, there's a turntable with a plant, and there's a camera stand, light sources. So you're taking photos of the plant from many different directions. That's another source of data. It strikes me that we also have lots of hand drawings that artists have made. And even the 3D models that have been built of plants could act as a way of training a system to get a better model of that. And lastly, I'm starting to think, well, there's text descriptions, a large sprawling picturesque tree, usually graced with Spanish moss. I could give that to DALL-E and it would make that tree. So I'm trying to do, you're going to start seeing an integration of text and imagery. And that's in there too. I'm going to move on. Some related techniques are machine vision for plant identification. If you can now take your phone outside and take a picture of a plant. I'm sure you've all tried this. Elementally, how does it work? These systems are very good at dealing with things, a similarity. The idea that two things might be similar or they might be very different is central to image classification. So here's an example of, on the left is a target image, and there's a huge database, 125,000 images from iNaturalist. And it finds the images in the database that are similar to the one you're giving it. Because the neural network's already been trained to look at pictures and it can tell when they're similar or not. If you then furthermore add labels, if you manually put the name of the plant on these pictures, then it's identifying. Another big thing is segmentation. This is a lot of work in agriculture right here in IFAS, that you just want to find where are the papayas, these are guavas. Where are the guavas? Where are the branches? Count the number of fruits so you can see how well the crop's doing. Another area where we happen to have some experts on hand to tell you much more about it is a neural radiance field. This is a technique that takes a 3D space and produces a color value for every little point in the space. And this takes a function, you give it the XYZ, the three-dimensional space, and you give it two angles for your viewing angle. It says, I'm looking at this spot at this angle, why is there not a third of 6 one for distance?
It's like spherical coordinates, so you can just.
It's
do an
spherical,
angle
but
angle.
okay, we'll talk about it.
But
I discovered I can't zoom in on this plant. This looks like a photograph on the lower right, but it's really a neural network generating this plant. So you put it the XYZ, basically, the position, the spot, and then it produces a color value, red, green, blue colored value. And it does that for every point in the space. And it's a very powerful technique. You'll be hearing more about this. Another thing to talk about is mesh versus skins. If you really, this is the elements of how a 3D plant model works. On the right, you see a nice pine tree. On the left, you see the wire frame. It's called a mesh. It's traditionally used as triangles to get the surface of the plant. And then you have to put a color. You have to color it. This is like Walt Disney when he did his animations. People would draw the lines of the characters, and then another set of people would put the colors on. So the problem is where to come up with the mesh. But in general, where can we get quality 3D plant models? Because the video games look great, but they're not powerful enough to answer the questions we have. We want to study wind effects, light interceptions, crowding, incorporate plant growth models, water carbon balance, incorporate genetic effects, and we need better models to do that. So this is a called procedural algorithmic. Here's shout out to my brother Steve who makes these artworks. So you see that you start out with a line, it makes a triangle, it makes circles. I'm giving you the steps, the procedure for building this geometric shape, and that's where the term procedural comes from. It's used as step by step reconstructing the plan. And this is an old idea that's gaining some new life. It's a wonderful book called The Algorithmic Beauty of Plants. The real author is Aristide Lindenmayer, who put the L in L systems. It's based on fractals, and you can see that you can produce shapes, and it's very good at mimicking the growth pattern. What you're seeing in these animations, it's iterative. Every step, you have the plant at one point, then the next step, it gets a little bigger, it grows a leaf, or it grows a branch, step by step. There's even a nice, in the lower left, there's a very elegant declarative representation of how the plant structure should be evolving. We want to do more with this, but that was about 90 years ago, 1990s, 33 years ago. That book came out. So, and that was the end of Lindenmayer's life and career. But now we have something new. We can take old technology L systems and match them up with machine learning. Couldn't do that before. So what we want to do is estimate parameters in these L system equations. So I have worked up an example, determining the shape of a leaf from a photograph. Okay, this is kind of a toy problem, but we need to know about leaf shapes. And so here's some nice hand-drawn ones. What if I took the hand drawing at the left, then I turned it into black and white. C is like this abstract elementary L system model for the shape of this oligo leaf. But it doesn't look like it because we haven't estimated the parameters. And in D, we run it through a machine learning program that would estimate the parameters, the lengths of the stems, the angles. And we were able to, we basically say, let's do machine learning and get the L system to look like the drawing on the left. And on the right, you see it did pretty good. I was especially happy that it found the distance between the nodes and the angles and the tip, that found the tip. It didn't work as well at the top because the photograph isn't very good. You can see that black and white's kind of mushed together. But where there was a clear break, it worked pretty well. And this is what we'd like to do combine these techniques. Now we're worrying about what exactly is going on when a plant is growing and what is the mechanism of causing this blade. It turns out that the cells are basically multiplying at the base of this leaf. They're pushing it upwards. There's a lot of questions about the mechanisms of the leaf, the plant growth. Now, here's some cross sections of some stems by Robert Burden. And the point is, there's a tremendous amount of internal detail in the plant. And the 3D models that are just looking at the surface, they're literally just scratching the surface. Now, there's certainly good applications for that, but we want to go further. Anybody who's had a high school botany, and I haven't, so I'm running fast, knows these terms as epidermis, cortex, the center pit, the vascular bundle, the xylem and phloem. These are internal structures that exist in all plants. And may not be obvious, but they're there if you look carefully. I think that center one's just a tree. I think it's bark with growth rings in the middle. And so there's a possibility of zooming in and getting this detail. And there's no end to it. I think the difference between a plant model and a real plant is the level of detail. And it does depend on your purpose, but there's like this infinite levels of complexity. I mean, there's a cellular level, there's a genetic level, and this goes on. And I see no reason that we can't capture this, and there's certainly the hardware will have the resolution capabilities to do it. Okay, a bit about recommendation systems. You've all shopped on Amazon and you bought something and you go, oh, you should buy this too. How does that work? Well, there's a number of methods, and I was hoping during at some point in the workshop we could start to discuss different ways of recommending things. I just want to know what I should plant in my backyard. There's database searches. There's lots of plants databases out there. So let's go. I like a palm tree that's more than 50 years old and is generally available. You can buy them down the street. Great. I get a list of trees back. That's sort of a plant selector. There's one huge problem. There's no guarantee that that plant's going to work in my backyard because I didn't take into account other factors that may be very important, but still. I'm going to skip this one a little bit. Vector search is another method. Anybody remember Pandora? I was shocked to hear it's still here. I love Pandora. That was like one of the first streaming streaming services. They actually hired musicologists to come up with a vector of musical attributes on every single estimated 5 million tracks. Who's the artist? What's the era? What's the date? What instruments were used? And if you do that for every song, then you can say, oh, these two songs are similar because the features in this vector overlap. Good example. I want to point out, you may have heard the term embedding vector because it's all over AI. Everything has an embedding, even you have an embedding vector now for you. It's the same idea. And the nice thing is that different things have different embedding vectors, but things that are in some sense similar, the numbers are close. The other weird thing is there's no attributes on those numbers. It's just a list of numbers. We don't care what they are, as long as the neural network produces the kind of output we want. Anyway, quick introduction to vector spaces. And then we have expert systems, and we have just renovated a system on Florida trees that was developed a while ago that factors in, if you ask an expert, what tree should I plant? They're going to have a very different viewpoint on all the things you have to consider. And here's a big list of them. Not just things like hardiness zone, but soil conditions, sunlight. Is it urban, residential? What's your irrigation and maintenance? And here's what it looks like. It's almost like a chat where the computer's asking the questions. What type of sunlight exposure will your site have? Does the water drain through the soil? These are things that most people would not think of asking, but it has a huge impact on selecting a tree. Later, eventually it comes up with a list. And these are guaranteed to work in your backyard, whereas I think the other methods are not, I would suspect. On the other hand, it's a lot of work to build these things. I don't know if this was done before machine learning, and it was built by hand, and here's a graph of all the things that get taken into account and what affects what. What I want to throw it out, what do we really need in a recommendation system? What should we consider? Can machine learning be used to extract rules automatically from text publication? Can remote sensing be used to gather site details automatically? You shouldn't have to put in your hardiness zone. You're standing right there and your GPS position will tell you. So this is an active area, I think. Okay, then there are plant databases out there besides, there's the national and international ones. They're all over the place. The UF Herbarium is loaded. There's iDigBio, there's iNaturalist, and there's also IFAS. One problem I'm having though is that all these sites duplicate information and they don't always do it accurately. So IFAS has at least 5 websites dealing with plants. And due to multiple databases, do they provide contradictory information? Are they up to date? It's a bit of a mess, but I think AI tools can extract and compare knowledge from different locations and try to fix this. Lastly, a few comments on natural language processing. You probably heard large language models are out. I mean, by large, I mean hundreds of billions of parameters. That's the number of weights in the neural network. They're enormous. And of course, you can build chat bots and question and answer, and you can extract information from text. And we're looking at that now. Looking at extension publications and municipal codes are these wonderful documents, 1,000 pages long, that cities come up with explaining what you can and can't do. And nobody has time to read that. So we want to see if we can have a way to extract information from those codes. Multimodal language models is the new hot thing, but it's really early. I'll mention that at the end. Anyway, so chatbots. So you might ask these kinds of questions, like the list on the left there. We are trying to evaluate how accurate these are for extension. And people are probably using these already, and they don't know whether they're getting good answers or not. But we did feed, so you have to have a benchmark to tell whether your system is accurate and reliable. Otherwise, it seems to work, just doesn't cut it. Or somebody tries it and, oh, it doesn't work, gave me the wrong answer. That's very subjective. We can put numbers on, and we did. Actually, we tried some agricultural chatbots, and they're getting like 60–70% accuracy. I gave this list to both ChatGPT and a system called Claude, and they got them all right, which says a couple things. First of all, they haven't been trained on IFAS data per se, except the IFAS data is very public. So yeah, they're coming in and they're looking at IFAS websites, but I can also ask questions another way and get them wrong. But basically these questions are too easy. This general knowledge of gardening that is already talked about in Wikipedia and other gardening websites all over the country. It does beg the questions. How does the information produced by IFAS make unique contributions to the knowledge of agriculture? Because we're seeing that this knowledge is already out there. I know there's specific things going on in Florida that we have to exploit. And if you write a paper, you're not going to have to say, well, what's your contribution here? How is this paper different from what's already out there? Interesting problem. Then this is information extraction. I'll say in my experience, the language models have improved dramatically in the past few months. Back in the spring, they were always getting it wrong. Now we're getting very accurate. How accurate must they be? 100% would be nice. I don't know if we can get there. It may not be realistic, but these are some things to consider before you start using these tools. Do they address local conditions? Is the response up to date? If the thing was trained 2 years ago, it's going to be out of date. Can the source of information be documented? If they make a claim, I'm going to go, I'll prove it. You know, fact check. Where's your fact checking? Yeah. There's also a lot of human intervention with massive amounts of manual labor to identify and correct erroneous responses. Not well paid. Yeah, sure. Actually, I don't want to go down that road. If this isn't 100% unsupervised learning, machine learning, it's not only expensive, it really won't work. There's nuances and subtleties in IFAS publications. You can't do that by manually training it. We've been down that. Anyway, so just beware if you're going to go this way. Here's some information extraction from text. This is the Live Oak publication from IFAS. And don't worry if you can't read it because we don't need you anymore. But we have a problem because Ryan and I have just you've been working on new publications, and this publications are out there out of date. We need to know which trees are invasive and which are not, because this changes. So this is a very powerful technique. This is called using the context window. And this is Claude again. I uploaded this publication to Claude. That was this PDF ST564. So it gets that and it goes, Then I ask it a question. And it can answer the question based on the prompt that I give it, and it does it very accurately. And this, got the answer right here. I thought it was a little wordy, so I said, can you just give us a yes or no? And, so we can run this on lots of, we've got about 1,000 trees publications, and we can actually run this and come back with a table of invasives. And then lastly, the municipal codes. What are the requirements for management of invasive species? And it gave it, I prompted it with the Gainesville municipal codes. And it did an excellent job summarizing it. And it also mentions that here's a list of invasive non-native plant species according to the city of Gainesville, the ones they don't want you to plant. It produced the list accurately. It made one mistake, and I corrected it. So this is information extraction. Last thing is the multimodal language models there's not a lot on this yet. This is the idea that so far we've talked about text with these chatbots and things, but we're also going to have pictures. We're going to have other kinds of data. Multimodal means it's not just text, it's more stuff. DALL-E is an example of multimodal, but I think it's going to be even bigger than that. The result, a new kind of library, highly organized, easily accessible, containing everything we know about urban horticulture, along with supporting text images. It's a new way of organizing the things that we know. That way. And of course, we'll access it through conventional human computer interfaces as well as extended reality. Get ready.